Resistance Burning Skies not only brings the fight against the Chimera to the PlayStation Vita, but is also the first twin-stick FPS game on a handheld system. But the big question is, will it blend? I mean, how does it play?
It was clear. Life as I had known it was over.
Burning Skies takes place at the beginning of the Chimera's invasion of the US of A. You play as Riley, a New Jersey firefighter who has never taken on any military training. But that won't stop our hero from picking up a gun and helping the local resistance. Of course, the fight becomes personal when he must find the location of his wife and his daughter, amongst all the chaos. While the story as a whole may not be involving, the game does a good job of sucking you into that 1950s era, with solid voice acting and really amusing propaganda films.
In the unlikely event of an attack, an alarm will sound. Do not panic. This just means that it's time to proceed to your neighborhood's designated extraction point.
Because the Vita has two analog sticks, the aiming and movement controls are flawless. Something I would never say about an FPS game on a handheld, since all previous portable systems only had one stick. Reloading your gun, crouching, and the cover system all work very well. But it's when we get to the touch controls that things become messy. The virtual buttons, like the grenades and melee attacks, respond well. Tapping the back screen twice to run can be annoying, but you do get used to it. Unfortunately, you'll never accept the game's stupid way of inputting the secondary actions for your gun. Instead of simply pushing a button like you did in previous Resistance games, Burning Skies forces you to use touch controls and sometimes draw lines on the screen to use secondary fire. This takes your hands off the buttons, obstructing parts of the screen, and makes you vulnerable to enemy fire. But as annoying as the touch controls are, the single player campaign was somewhat of a guilty pleasure for me. Yes, the AI is really bad, and there aren't too many types of enemies, but the large variety of weapons and really challenging sections that forced me to rethink my strategy reminded me of shooters from the old days. Plus, you can carry every weapon in the game at all times, even though the only new weapons are a crossbow attached to a shotgun and a fireman's axe, which doubles as your quick melee attack and a means of smashing through obstacles. A much cooler option than your typical knife in other FPS games. Call of Duty, please take notes.
They're getting into the camp somehow.
Well, let's follow them.
I got this one.
The game's incredibly short story mode can be wrapped up in under 6 hours. There's a great new Game Plus mode that allows you to carry over all your weapons and upgrades to the next playthrough. But unless you want to unlock all the upgrades and hunt down all the hidden documents, there really isn't any reason to play through the whole campaign again. Now, let's talk about the online component. There are only 3 modes of gameplay: Deathmatch, Team-Based Deathmatch, and Survival. Your usual perk system gives you access to more weapons and upgrades as you level up. Finding a match is a very smooth experience, and even with the game's maximum of 8 players in one map, there wasn't any lag issues. However, the minimal customization, limited game modes, balancing issues, and boring layout of the 6 maps makes it hard to invest in the online experience. Compared to Uncharted Golden Abyss, Burning Skies doesn't look very hot. But to be fair, this game does have bigger environments than Uncharted, and there's only one long loading time for each level. Some of the animations are pretty sloppy, and it's the same story with the sound effects. The music may have been composed by the same guy responsible for the soundtrack of Dead Space 2, what's his name, but the final product sounds generic, with none of the tracks really standing out.
Let us remember the firemen. One man can make a difference. All we need is resolve.
Burning Skies is a tough game to recommend. It's not a terrible game. In fact, with the exception of the touch controls, everything in this game pretty much works. But it feels as though this game was built with the intention of simply being a functional FPS and nothing more. It's like a school kid who studies just enough to get a passing grade and is okay with that. There's just no sense of ambition or pride to be found here. But let's not forget, this game is the first and only twin-stick FPS on a handheld system, which means if you set your expectations to 0 and just want an FPS to play anywhere, at any time, the toilet perhaps, then by all means, please buy yourself a copy of Burning Skies. For everyone else, I recommend that you wait for one of the other FPS games planned for the Vita. Anyway, I'm giving Burning Skies a rating of 5 out of 10.